Hi Ryan,
Hi, how are you doing, Sid?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, just keeping myself busy during this lockdown with continuously educating myself. This is a good period where, in a coach's life, which we don't usually find,
Mm-hmm.
to spend time with family, to do some more education. So
Sure.
that's how I'm trying to make it as productive as possible.
Sure. So you must be attending a lot of these webinars with football experts and people
So
involved
I
on this side.
I was at the beginning of lockdown, and then I had an overload of webinars
Right.
because there's too much of that. So it's like a information overload. So you do
Right.
it's basically quantity over quality. You don't really remember too much of what
Mm-hmm.
you listen to.
Right.
But I am doing a few courses in fitness online, and
Oh,
I'll be doing one coach education course online as well soon.
interesting. Interesting. So what about your students?
My students, as of now, we have got them the chance to train online.
Mm-hmm.
We keep giving them tips. I'm blessed to have a good core staff at my academy.
Right.
We run it together.
Sure.
Me, Siddharth Shukla, and Achish Bhagwat.
Mm-hmm.
They usually send out good programs to the players that
Right.
they can follow, programs with regards to their to exercises, nutrition, welfare, and other topics.
Mm-hmm.
And we are trying to, just like us, they are also finding the opportunity after a long time to relax, because it's usually in season, it's quite hectic for them. So they are training 3 days a week, and then they are playing games over the weekend. So this is
Yeah.
their opportunity to train it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. That's great. So Ryan, when did you get started with football? At what age?
My I I was blessed at the age of 12 to
Okay.
have. I was actually a cricketer initially,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the age of 12, I was fortunate to have explored the sport
Right.
and explored the sport with, you could say, professional coaching. I first probably kicked a ball quite late, actually, in comparison to the current kids at the age of 10.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then at 12, I got some formal coaching. I had a very good coach, Mr. Marcellus John,
Yeah.
at the Aditya Birla World Academy,
Mm-hmm.
which was my school in Bombay. And from there, I have the entire thrill of the game, being a
Yeah.
fast moving game, physical game. I had decided that that's what I want to make my profession.
Sure.
And at the age of 12 and a half, I was just exploring that, how does one go about these things? And then I found out that, okay, you have to get into a youth academy of a professional club and then make your way up.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 13, I went and gave trials at two clubs, Mumbai FC
Mm-hmm.
and Air India. I was not selected in Mumbai FC, and that was one night to forget because I didn't know where to go next, with
Mm-hmm.
football being uh, such a addiction at that point
Sure.
of time, and me making up it a point to try and make it pro. And at Air India, I was lucky to have been spotted by Mr. Bimal Ghosh, who is my favorite coach, someone I look up to even till today.
Right.
He's got his the knack of spotting talent, 30 plus India players so far. And
Sure.
it was a moment of joy, of pride, to have someone like that spot my ability.
Right.
And I love the environment there. I got to know what it is like to live as a professional footballer, to have top pros training with me.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I had gone to Kenkre FC at the age of 14, into their under 17 team.
Mm-hmm.
The under 17 team had a coach called Mr. Floyd Pinto, who works with the Indian team now,
Right.
and that was quite a happy environment. It ensured that there is professionalism as well as recreation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finished with Mumbai United, which was at the age of 16, playing senior pro level.
Mm-hmm.
And my last Mumbai Tigers, which actually my previous coach of Air India, he took me there, and
Sure.
that was the most professional club I've ever been in. Our senior team was full of four or five international players, a
Mm-hmm.
few two captains, and that was a good environment, completely professional, with astroturf pitches, a swimming pool after training.
Sure.
They gave us our food, and then I that was my playing journey. I went for a year to the UK to Brookhouse College Football Academy, played there for a year, and then I had to just take a call on whether I should, whether I should try and pursue professional football or try and get into coaching. Now,
Mm-hmm.
with coaching, I always had that determination of one day becoming a coach. I
Right.
was always interested in it. I always analyzed how my coaches used to take their training sessions and their entire methodology. So
Mm-hmm.
that is my playing journey. Now,
Sure,
whenever you'd like, I can cover my coaching journey too.
sure. Sure. I want to backtrack a bit. What did your coach see in you? Like, what do coaches usually see in 12 or 13-year-olds when you say you are spotted? So, do they check technique? Do they check your physicality? What is it that they usually, look for?
So yeah. So for every coach, it's a different the attribute that they look at, or various different attributes they look at.
Mm-hmm.
For when I did get into my first club, it
Right.
was based on my simply I was a goalkeeper. So again, it's position specific.
Right.
In whichever position you play, there are different sets of attributes. Now with
Sure.
me, it was simple. He had just seen my diving and my gripping. That was it, which I found out at a later day. At that stage, we did not really have the guts to ask our coaches that what did you see in me, because it was
Sure.
quite a yeah, like a not a dictatorial approach, but we used to keep a distance from them out of fear,
Of
which
course.
which is a good thing. I don't mean it in a negative way.
Of
It's
course.
required. Now, usually, if one is just talking as a coach, then in a 12 to 13-year-old goalkeeper, you're looking at their confidence. If they are scared of getting hit by a ball, their
Mm-hmm.
communication, and then the basic techniques, which would be
Sure.
their gripping, their distribution, their diving, and then after that, you have if they are 13, then that means till 18. That's
Mm-hmm.
5 years for the opportunity for them to develop, to enhance
Sure.
their on their abilities.
Sure. Sure. So, all right. So then you got into coaching, and how did you go about it?
So as I said, I had to take a call on on a second option, because obviously playing comes with its shelf life. You're looking at maximum 32, and
Yeah.
after that you'll have to look at some other option. Now 32 is considered retirement age in football, but in usual life, people start their career in corporates at not start, but they get to
Sure.
a decent level in
Y-
their career at that
Right.
age. And because I had that passion of coaching,
Mm-hmm.
i always I always had that ambition. I decided that I can't really think of anything else. I For a year I did explore other avenues. I took admission into a BBA program in Symbiosis, which was
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the worst decisions, waste of time in my life. I
Oh.
did an internship with a company,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that internship, I went to my parents and I said, anything but please, this is what I have to make as my sport, or I'm going to go berserk.
Right.
I was very, very lucky and tremendously lucky, because usually Indian parents aren't like this.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad said that you go ahead with this. If this is your passion, you pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was always in of the idea that whatever you do it to the best of your ability. Complete high pressure that success is what you need to get. So that helped
Right.
me quite a lot. My father was always into me educating myself in football, that okay, you want to do this license, go for it, or you
Mm-hmm.
want to do another course, go for it. So I had that support, without which none of this would be possible, because there are many dedicated people in India, but then their parents stop them eventually. They
Sure.
want them to go into lawyer, doctor, engineer, average life.
Sure.
So after that happened, I went into I did my FA level 1,
Mm-hmm.
which is the English FA license, but it was an international one. So it was held in Pune.
Right.
And then I did my AIFFD license. So these are like the first, like how you would call it, a certificate program kind of thing in education academic
Mm-hmm.
terms. So it's like
Right.
a level 1. It's an entry level license. And
Sure.
after doing that, I was in a hurry to get recruited at some kind of organization.
Mm-hmm.
This was during my third year of doing my BBA. So
Sure.
I completely let go of, I put academics to a side, and my first job was at Kalyani School. And then I got into I was working with this educational this low income government school called Madhav Rao Sonba Tupe. And from there, I made my way up the ladder. I became head coach of two universities, Ajinkya D.Y. Patil and Flame University. I've worked with Kalyani School, as I mentioned, and Orbis School. Now I'm at a brilliant organization called Aman Setu School. I've worked at one academy called Kenzo's, and a club in Mumbai where we got the results. We finished first on the table, so it all went well. And now I have my own academy, which is we are running it in Kharadi, and we hope to open up two more in Hinjewadi and NIBM.
Sure.
And I just decided that I'll take my time before starting my own academy, because it's important to get experience in every sector of youth football before venturing out on one's own.
Right.
So that's how I got into coaching, and it's never my complete fear. My fear at all times is that one shouldn't reach their plateau. That okay, now I know everything, because there's always some kind of concept evolving in coaching, in science, and one has to be up to date. Which is why I keep doing different courses, watching different videos, doing paid subscriptions, listening to experts in the field.
Sure. When, I mean, you were a goalkeeper, right? During your playing journey, professional journey.
Yeah.
So when you become a coach, how do you usually put yourself in the eyes of a striker or a midfielder?
Yeah. When we do our coaching courses, and when we are in general passionate about the sport, we always want to know what the other positions, roles and responsibilities are.
Sure.
So you always get to know, at least on your coaching courses, they tell you that these are these, like a defender has to roam around in a certain zone.
Right.
They have roles of tackling, man marking. That's just an example. So in striker, as you mentioned, it's shooting, off the ball movement, and the list is endless.
Right.
Now to surprise you, now I went into I'm always more interested in doing outfield coaching, despite being a goalkeeper, and I have the qualifications in place as a goalkeeping coach. But I would call myself a better outfield coach than a goalkeeping coach. So it's not necessary that if you've played that position, you're good at it, because playing and coaching is completely different. There are amazing players who end up being average coaches, and vice versa.
Right.
And you'll see that with, the best example is Jose Mourinho in world football. He was a school PT teacher.
Right.
So that's a very good example of how it's different.
Right.
And I just keep trying to study that, different positions, every unit, how every unit has to move, how every position within that unit has to move. And so this is one misconception that many people from the outside world have, that if you have played a position, you're good at coaching in that position. Not the case.
Interesting. And when you talk about these licenses, who does it matter for? Is it just like a personal thing that you feel great, or do parents actually ask you what license coach are you, or when is it actually required?
Licenses are a prerequisite to get a job, to get employment. It's like if you have to get into digital marketing, you require some certificate that you have done a course in that.
Sure.
Now, with regards to feeling great, that's what many of these many coaches unfortunately have, that thinking that a piece of paper makes them amazing. That's not the case. With regards to parents asking, so far I've never had a parent ask me what license I have, and that is actually a bad thing, because when parents send their kids to an academy, what they look at is that, is my kid having fun for 1 hour that they are there? Are they just, is their time being worth it? But then how do you determine whether they are learning anything or not? The first thing to check is that, coach whose hands they have left their kid in, is that coach qualified to do that job?
Sure.
Right now, a lot of academies have ex-players who say that, okay, you know how to play, so why don't you try and coach? And then in that process, a lot of kids under their under their tutelage, they get average training, and then they don't really achieve too much in the sport. So this is
Right.
one change where parents actually ask the coaches that, are you actually qualified to do it? And if a
Mm-hmm.
coach is qualified, they'll be happy to tell you that they are. If they are not, then that's an indication, go somewhere else.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel in India, parents have more trust in ex professional players than in good coaches. So, I mean, if you're a really good coach, but they see someone, a professional player starting his academy, they'd prefer to put their child there, right? Am I right?
That is the case, with no disrespect to pro players.
Right,
There have been some amazing pro players who have got into coaching. I mean, to
right.
name them, Khalid Jamil, former India player, Derek Pereira, former Indian player. They
Mm-hmm.
are all doing well as coaches, but then that's not always the case. You see,
Right, right.
these are a few names I'm taking of the successful ones. I can
Mm-hmm.
take enough names of unsuccessful top level players who,
Sure,
I mean, successful top level players who are very average coaches.
sure.
So it's good to, as long as one doesn't mix up the two,
Mm-hmm.
that is
Right.
where every doubt gets cleared. It is like a businessman teaching an MBA program. So on
Right,
his own, the businessman got all the track record, but does that mean he can, put the ideas across to someone who's
right.
trying to learn the art?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all times,
Sure, sure,
because coaching is basically teaching.
sure. So
Yeah.
we're going to get into the grassroots discussion now. Um, okay,
Hmm.
since we're talking about parents, when parents put their kids into your academy, since you have your own academy right now, you can probably tell me from experience. When they put their kids in the academy, what percentage of the parents put them with the intention of the child becoming a professional, and what percentage of the parents put them as just for recreation?
So as of now, the majority, and it's a cultural thing, the
Sure.
majority are there for recreation, because not too many parents will say that they want their kids to become a sports person.
Hmm.
So that's why that is that done. But they put them into as a some kind of physical activity, you could call
Sure.
it. Now it is our job of giving the kids a professional type of training, to give them the best chance to keep that option open. So
Right.
if we can get someone to be talented enough to try and become a professional football, then even whether they do want to or don't want to, at least that's another career option for them.
Sure.
Now when we talk about recreational kind of training, it is a lot to do with the age group.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 4-year-olds at our academy. Now with them, we don't really keep it too hard. It's obviously we wouldn't, because their body wouldn't allow it,
Mm-hmm.
and of course their brain, the maturity has not formed as much as it
Right.
should, as it would be to be required to try and go through a strenuous program.
Right.
With them, it's more of fun games, fun activities, but with the whole point being to ensure that their motor skills are developed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Right.
not just them doing something random. It's all according to a plan, according to a training program.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we go into the higher age groups, that
Mm-hmm.
time it's a mix of having fun and giving them a bit of a reality of what's required. And then once they are in our oldest age group, which is our under 17,
Mm-hmm.
that time it is, we don't really give any false hopes to anyone. We are not really too concerned about how many kids we have and how much profit we make. It's
Mm-hmm.
more about how many kids from our academy end up doing something well in the sport.
Sure.
And there have been situations in the past in our under 17 age group where even kids who have paid fees, if they are not showing the dedication required to try and become a professional footballer, we have kicked them out.
Sure.
Because then otherwise, it's, if we are telling them that we are the place to be, you can become a footballer through our academy, and then people are messing around, then it's a waste of their time and ours.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
So,
that's also one way that we are different from other academies.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Ryan, don't you think this is like an issue? Like, basically when parents put their children with the intention of making football, starting off just for recreation, as compared to, let's say, Europe, where even at the under 8 level, they have, first division, second division. And so obviously the kids there have, a much bigger head start as compared to kids in India, right?
Yeah, so the first point of view here would be that we can't really compare a entire grassroots program of a European country to India, because we can't forget that football isn't the main sport here. It is cricket.
Right.
Now, if we compare the facilities and the programs in cricket in India, I am 100% sure it will probably be more advanced than a lot of the other countries that play cricket. So
Mm-hmm.
that is again a cultural thing.
Right.
But there could be many ways in which we can get closer to that European system. Now, even within the European system, if it's an under 8 team,
Mm-hmm.
one must not think that there they are told that you're going to have a chance to become a pro player, and they sideline their second sport or the education, because the
Mm-hmm.
fact is that from these professional academies that we are talking about, professional club academies,
Right.
it's a known statistic that only 0.012% of them become professionals. So
Even.
even there yeah, so there they are very, very what would be the right word? They'd be very careful about giving any hopes. It's just that, fine, I mean, which is your favorite club? I'll just give an example with
United,
regards to that.
United.
United, same here. So then now at United, you wouldn't have Tony Whelan tell a little player that, you're going to end up playing with Rashford one day. It's just that we give you the best facilities that you can get as a
Mm-hmm.
football school, you can call it,
Mm-hmm.
and you will get the best coaching, and then we see how it goes from there as you progress per age, every age group. Now at United, they have got this head of youth development, Nick
Right.
Nick Nick Cox, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and he ensures that people's education and other activities are taken care of up to the age of under 18. Only after under 18, when they go into the under 23, do they talk about them finding a proper club, or them, making football their only motto in life.
Sure. Sure.
So if we can just get that thing in India,
Mm-hmm.
where where every club ensures that they give the best training program and best facilities they can to the players,
Mm-hmm.
then then you are the players are safer. So the ones who do end up making it professionally, happy days. For the ones who don't end up making it professionally, the majority of them, they
Right.
can at least end up being better citizens, because there's football is a sport through which you can learn so much more,
Sure.
like, apart from just playing the game.
Sure. Sure. So yeah. And all right. So yeah, we don't have these under 6, under 8 leagues. So why don't you talk about an ideal player development pathway?
So as of now in India, it is coming in. There are these golden baby leagues.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the WIFA, Western India Football Association. They run these baby leagues where it is, you have under 8, under 10, under 12, and there
Sure.
are many youth level tournaments happening around Pune where they do allow under 8 teams to play. So there are
Mm-hmm.
specific under 8 tournaments. So that's
Right.
happening. With regards to to having a proper plan for this, it's hard to demand from a club that, you have to have this and this in place, because then there unfortunately there aren't any returns on investments in India until
Mm-hmm.
football becomes a main sport.
Right.
And it would be unfair to, just say that spend an extra few lakhs or a crore on just setting up a good youth system.
Mm-hmm.
But the small things can be done better. An example would be Bengaluru FC.
Right.
They ensure that there are multiple football schools from where they get the talented bunch and get them together to play. So
Mm-hmm.
things like that can be done. There should be more. I would actually, being an academy owner,
Yeah.
I'm being a football fan, more importantly, I would be happy to see more football academies start in India, in Pune, in India,
Mm-hmm.
whatever standard. Yeah, they could probably be a little academy that only has one coach and a few footballs, but at least that gives more players a chance to get formal training.
Sure.
That would be the first step, and it's all about them, about players getting the chance to play as many matches as they can. So if we can have more tournaments for any age group, be it under 8 all the way up to under 18 I league, that would be a good thing, because after all, playing and training is like a school program. Your training is basically your classroom, and your matches are your exams. So matches are where coaches can actually find out how much have players picked up.
Sure. So where does the school football thing come into the picture? You see a lot of
At
uh,
school,
schools and
uh
colleges having teams and stuff, right? So what is the main thing? Getting into private clubs or getting into the school teams?
depends on what age group you're talking about. If you're talking from the youngest age group to under 16 level,
Mm-hmm.
everything is important because you have to get as many matches as possible.
Right.
School wise, the good part is that you get a bit of newspaper coverage and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And academy wise, the benefit is that you get more of a formal kind of training. At
Yeah.
schools, you usually have a bachelor or master in physical education with a big belly coming in,
Mm-hmm. Right.
teaching people athletics instead of football, and then making a quick school team. Now, that
Right.
doesn't really help too many people. On
True.
the long run, it's more of they'll go play a knockout tournament here and there, win, go to the next group or lose, come back home, and that's the end of it.
Right.
At academy level, and don't get me wrong, people should still play for their school team, because as I said, it's extra matches always help as long
Sure.
as you play matches. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at development, improving yourself, then finding a club or an academy is better, because there's some kind of you can say there's some way of checking what kind of progress a player is making and the people in charge are
Sure.
making, what the plan is, what the plan is for the player, something designed by a coach about the best way to make sure that the players in that age group go to a higher level. So there's more accountability at clubs and academies. So
Mm-hmm.
given a choice, if a player has all the options, both school and club, academy, whatever, private tournaments, play in your society team, do whatever you want to,
Mm-hmm.
as long as one gets extra matches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you go beyond under 16 level to under 18 level, that time that's when getting closer to getting a professional contract. There you'll have to be a bit more careful about the matches you play, because a little injury at that time can really ruin your chances.
Right.
And one unfortunate thing that I've seen amongst universities is that there'll be a certain tournament. The guys will try and make a little team to get all the girls attracted to them.
Mm-hmm.
Play a game, lose, and get back home and go and do whatever activities they have to. So there needs
Right.
to be some seriousness at university level.
Sure. 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 So yeah, education and football. How can players balance it? Have there been Indian players who have balanced it, or have they, based on their experience, have they given up their studies and just focused on football?
Now, education is a thing that will be required regardless whether you are a superstar player or not. Because we
Mm-hmm.
spoke about how at the age of 30 or you are considered old in football. Now, you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to die at 30. You're going to live up to whenever, 70, 80 or whatever is you're calling. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do after that? I'm taking the best case example of one becoming a professional footballer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after that, one can't live 40, live whatever. When do you start playing? Let's say 10 in India, 10 to 30. So that's 20 years of a football journey. One can't have that at a very good level, and then 30 to 70, 40 years of your life being a nobody. So as long as education is happening in some way or form,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter about what level it is. One can't obviously put the demand to a under 18 I League player that you have to still score 96%.
Mm-hmm.
That's impossible,
Sure.
considering how much you have to put into sports. But degrees are important. Whoever
Mm-hmm.
you are, degrees are important, because after that you still have some kind of option to look forward to. I'm not even talking about backup option, that in case a sport doesn't work out, then you have something to fall back upon.
Mm-hmm.
You require, regardless of who you are.
Sure.
Now, how does one balance that? Let's say you're training 2 hours a day, in football at least. Earlier, the old mentality was that you train 6 hours a day, but then
Mm-hmm.
now that research has improved more, there's the concept of overtraining and all that comes in. So
Right.
let's say you're training 2 hours a day. You're living 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
You're sleeping, let's say you're really lazy and you're sleeping, I don't know, 10 hours a day. You're still left with 14. You're training 2 hours a day. You're left with 12. Yeah, your
Mm-hmm.
school what is usually 6 to 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're still left with free time, you see. So then you can easily balance your sports life, your education life, and your social life, which is equally important.
Sure.
Now it's
Sure.
just about the dedication. Now, usually parents right now nowadays say, life is easy, do what you like, do this, do that, chill. But and then afterwards, when the kid grows up and then has no ambition and no guidance, then the parents get worried that where did we go wrong and things like that. It's just about parents telling explaining to the kids in this way that all three are important. This is what's going to help you at this stage of your life. The way I just said that you can be the biggest sportsman you want, but it's what do you do after the age of after your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids have to be helped with finding a direction, and once
Right.
that direction is found, then there should not be too much of a hassle.
Mm-hmm. Right. Very
So
true.
now there are million ways of finding of getting them to balance it. There's no one size fits all kind of rule. It's just about keeping these things in mind, and then each parent to their own on on the best way to find a solution.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, how can we get in women's football into the picture? I know today we got some news that every team must have a women's team for the license, right?
That's the Yeah, I'm probably one of the most happy people in the country hearing this, because this is one thing I have wanted to see for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's get to the root of why women's football is not as developed as men's football.
Right.
I would be completely wrong if I say that men are better than women in football. It is this mentality that has got our society, got our nation to keep to promote men's sports within their sports. So men's football for everything instead of women's football.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because that is our mentality, it's gone into the women's minds that
Mm-hmm.
sports is not meant for us.
Right.
For them, it's like I mean, I'm putting it very straightforward, but for the women, it's for the women who are from a average background, you could say it's more of find a job. For
Sure.
the ones who find a office job or whatever you call it,
Mm-hmm.
something that the masses. For the ones who are from a, you can say, poverty stricken background or lesser economic background, for them it is get a husband and
Mm-hmm.
live your life.
Sure.
Now it's very few women in India actually take that chance of trying to make a name independently on their own.
Sure.
Now, unless and again, this is not for them we can't blame them for it. It is our entire male dominated society that is at fault for this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's take this simple rule that the AFF have finalized, that every club needs a women's team. This is perfect. Now, I would not really care about how they do it, how well they do it, how well they run their women's team. For a start, as a step number one, it's great that every club will have a women's team, which means that more women can have a chance to find a club,
Sure.
have a team to play for. Now, having a team to play for means that they'll get more matches to play. If let's say it's a college going girl, she
Mm-hmm.
can play for her college team as well as now a club team. So that's a good start. More
Right.
matches. Now we have to gradually get rid of the idea that women are not meant for sports, because statistically speaking, the Indian men's team are 100 and something, and the Indian women's team with hardly any infrastructure are 58, I think. I could be wrong, but it's around that figure, 50
Wow.
something world ranking. So you can imagine that that with a bit more of effort and attention to the women's game, where the Indian women's national team can end up.
Definitely.
This entire process needs to start from the youth level, start from home, where parents tell the kids that if you like sports, go for it all out, no problem. Then after that, the coaches need to get rid of this mindset that our men's team has to win. If
Right.
we are human, if we are talking about gender equality, then the way the happiness one gets from a male's team winning, a male sport team winning, one should get the same happiness of trying to get the women's team to win.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again over here, if I have hundreds of plans one can make on how to get this executed, but then again, like as long as this is the mindset that one can keep, that it's all equal, then everyone, we are all innovative. Every human being is innovative. We'll all find our own ways of getting it to work.
So Ryan, are there women who are interested? Because I'm not being a devil's advocate or anything of that sort. I'm
Yeah,
just saying because
yeah.
out of the, let's say, 300 friends I have in Pune, or
Hmm.
wherever, I don't know a single, maybe apart from one or two, I don't know a single girl or woman who watches football, who supports a team, or has ever kicked a ball in her life.
Yeah, so if just as I
And
mentioned
they are
before,
not
who's
from
at fault?
poor backgrounds. They're all very well off, either upper middle class or upper class. So there's an interest factor involved in this as well.
The fact is that they are not interested. That's the fact.
Yeah.
But then now, do we spend time trying to bash the system that okay, this is not right, that is not right, or do we find solutions to this?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if we have to, the women themselves are not to be blamed for this. Now
Right.
they have already been pigeonholed to think that they have no future in the sports, in the sport. So why in their right mind would they even think of being passionate about the sport?
Mm-hmm.
Because for them it's there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It
Right.
is us as stakeholders, as people who have something to say in the sport, being male using me as an example as a male coach,
Mm-hmm.
that we need to change that by showing that we are interested in both our teams equally. At least if I use my academy's example, for a long time our captain was a woman, and it's actually we play mixed teams, so
Okay.
males and females play together.
Mm-hmm.
We have gone into tournaments where people have made me sign disclaimers saying that, because I have two girls playing in my under 17, and one is 15, one is 14 turning
Mm-hmm.
15, and I've had these disclaimers to be signed that in case something happens to these girls,
Mm-hmm.
then the tournament organizer is not responsible. And
Okay.
what happened next was these two girls got red cards for being too rough.
Oh.
So in a male tournament, now you see people get fascinated by all this, but it is because I put that, not just me, it's every coach, every teammate who's involved with the academy. They
Mm-hmm.
have put instilled this belief that they are no less than a man.
Yeah.
The demands we If we demand a male player to finish, let's say, 100 meters in so many seconds, it's the same for the woman.
Yeah.
The women in no the girls in our team in no way feel that they are lesser than the than the male players in our team.
Mm-hmm.
they
Right.
they are Everyone's role is important. And we put our we one of our girls is a we play her defend as a defender. The other girl is quite versatile,
Mm-hmm.
and there I can't remember the number of times that they have won best defenders and stuff like that at male tournaments.
Right.
So if we can just see, I don't want to keep talking about stuff that I have done, but I just wanted to give this example.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we can just change this mentality,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
then we are completely sorted. I can assure you that yes, women may, if you compare them directly, you compare their strength and stuff like that, maybe they'll be weaker, but then that doesn't mean that they can't excel amongst themselves. And at least in this, amongst the two players that I have at the academy, they have gone head to head with players older than them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, so it's all about instilling that belief. And once we instill that belief, I can assure you that there'll be more women who'll become passionate, and more women who'll want to get into sports as a livelihood.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can't blame coaches. So let's take sports like,
So,
you know,
to
tennis.
be honest, I do. Being a coach, I do blame us coaches for having a gender bias.
No, I'll tell you why. So let's say badminton or tennis, Sanya is there, Saina is there, and we have PV Sindhu, all the top players. They've done really well in their sports. They've done really well in tennis. They've done really well in badminton. So when I play tennis professionally, okay, and I've trained under the best coaches in India, all right, top three coaches. I've trained under all three of them. So when girls join the academy, or when
Mhm.
any woman joins the academy, it's never taken as a thing where they will focus only on the men, because
Yeah.
there is a path there. Like you said, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is, even if it's very minute, there's still a 1% chance that this person can become a Sanya or a Saina. They are taken equally seriously. But in football, let's say, if um, for sure that, okay, there's not even a women's league, there's not even a proper structure, and why would the coaches take the women's? Because the women or girls all themselves know that they're just coming for time pass, and there's nothing
Yeah.
to look forward to, no career option. And
Yeah.
even the coaches know that. So obviously it's the whole system, right?
It everyone has to be blamed for this.
Right.
Everyone has to be blamed for this, but not the players. I'm
Definitely.
specifying not the players at all. Why should the decision makers be criticized? Because yes, they don't have a proper structure in place for them. But then
Definitely.
again, they are improving. This latest news of every club having to have a women's team
Right.
is a good start.
Yeah.
That shows improvement.
Of
Now
course.
for coaches, if one has the determination to
Mm-hmm.
try and do whatever it takes, put in the effort to get the girl players to get that belief that they must try and achieve whatever it is within the sport, achieve the pinnacle. So if it is for a woman player, if it is for playing for the national team,
Mm-hmm.
then try and help them achieve. Now, I would not compare tennis with football, because tennis, if you compare, football is for the common man and tennis is more of an elite sport.
Sure.
So the people involved in both sports, the mindsets, they differ in a big way,
Mm-hmm.
because we have a lot of we have people from all sorts of environments within football, all sorts of thoughts,
Sure.
mindsets within football. As coaches, we along with trying our best to get them to the highest ability they can,
Mm-hmm.
the highest achievements that they can do, or whatever you want to call it. uh, e- there's always some kind of end result in playing for your country, playing for your state, playing for your district. Now, if you're playing for a country as a girl,
Mm-hmm.
and you are looking at going and playing football just for the sake of it, and then finding a job somewhere, you may do very well in the other sector, but chances are you're one of the lot. Now,
Sure.
if you're a woman player playing for the national team, the
Mm-hmm.
government jobs you can get are quite high. Now, imagine if you're educated along with having a top sporting CV, then
Mm-hmm.
you may have a chance of doing better, position wise, finance wise, at a government institution.
Sure.
Now, we already have some players who are amazing in the Indian women's team. You have got Bala Devi, who I would actually call one of the, not maybe not world class, but at least Asia class.
Mm-hmm.
And Bala Devi has gone to Rangers in Scotland, and she's wearing the number 10 jersey for them. She's scoring goals for them regularly, and this is without any training.
Sure.
We had before her, we had Bembem Devi, who played in Maldives, and she did quite well. She was a talented player. We had Aditi Chauhan, who was with a English team. So we have talented players for sure.
Sure.
I would hence not blame the players at all. It is us as coaches and us as administrators who need to create a platform for them. And then after we create that platform, if they then don't make use of the platform, then we can maybe blame them, saying you're not passionate enough. But
Def-
that's only after we complete our role.
Definitely. Well said. Well said. And so, Ryan, talk to us about financial security for the men's and the women's.
Very good question. This is a question I love answering.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to my wife about this probably once a week.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you asking about players or coaches? Because it's a different thing for both.
Everyone, anyone involved in the football
Okay.
industry.
Okay. So if one is a player,
Mm-hmm.
then finance wise, I'll dissect this with profession as well as gender. Now,
Sure.
if you're a player and you're a male player,
Mm-hmm.
if you can get into the sport, you'll
Mm-hmm.
have to make sure that your fitness is at premium. You have to really ensure that you can, be fit till the age of 30, 32, 34, whatever it takes.
Right.
Because fortunately or unfortunately, in India, it takes time for most players to make a break, to make a big name. So in Europe, you'll have wonder kids, the 18 or 19-year-old sensation.
Mm-hmm.
In India, it takes a lot of game time at the age of 22 or 21, 22, 23. That's when players get the recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after you do find a club, it depends. Your financial security depends on what league you're playing. If you're playing in the ISL, then
Yeah.
you have a good financial security for a year. If you're really good and you've got a good contract, you have got a 2-year contract, then that really secures you for a short period of time.
Yeah.
If you're in the I League, then you're at least secured for those 9 months or 12 months or whatever they offer.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the I League second division, then you're in a tricky position to be, because you're only signed up for those few months, but you have to still live for 12 months. If
Mm-hmm.
you're playing in the local league, then you may not be able to survive solely on that football income. You'll have to have a second job in place.
Right.
So it's like the film industry. If you're Shah Rukh Khan, you're sorted. If you're a struggling guy, if you're Kamal Rashid Khan, then you have to take any role that people offer you. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's as simple as that, and financial security depends on that. Now, you're it depends on what level you're at. If you're a woman player, then if you're a notable woman player, then you'll get okay amount for playing in the IWL, Indian Women's League. Otherwise, unfortunately, the majority of them can't really make an income through playing football. But then that will definitely change because of this new law that the AFF have set.
Mm-hmm.
Till then, till this entire ecosystem changes with regards to this, at least they should try and use sports or football in specific as a stepping stone for getting a better job, in a government institution. Because many girls, that's one way for them to become independent financially and support their family. Now,
True.
if we are that's the players sorted, it's a very difficult journey, because count the number of clubs and the number of players aspiring to make a livelihood through the sport. Now, with
True.
coaches, it becomes even more difficult, because you still have a squad of 25, and in terms of coaches, you're
Mm-hmm.
excluding the sports scientists and all those guys. We are counting the actual coaches, the head coach, assistant, goalkeeping coach, maybe a technical director. So that's 4 or maximum 5 football staff.
Yeah.
So that again becomes much more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about this sport is that it's a lion's den. There's no two ways around it. You're either excellent or you're broke. So you have to either be supremely dedicated and ensure that you're constantly aware of what's happening. You're always good at your job. Then you may have a little chance of getting yourself a 12-month contract. Or at least if you're working as a freelancer, you do make ends meet, and you make ends meet in quite a lavish way if you're doing well in the industry. And if you're going into coaching thinking that, I've played, I may as well go into coaching because it's still on the field instead of sitting in an office, you're destined to fail, because you don't have that passion of teaching the sport. So you're naturally going to think of, that okay, this is how my coach improved me, this is how I teach my students. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. So people who are not as dedicated as they should be to the sport, they usually end up, either surviving for a few years and then going out, or getting in and after 1 year getting a reality check and then going in another profession.
Mm-hmm.
So over here also there are levels. If you're top of the game, you are earning in crores. If you are one of the others, you're earning a bit, and if you're not serious, then you're as good as working at a construction site.
Sure.
That's how the earnings would be for someone who's not doing too well, who's
Mm-hmm.
not dedicated enough.
Definitely. Well put.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I'm just giving a reality perspective. Many people will talk about how glorious it is, but I'm just giving a reality so that anyone listening,
Mm-hmm.
everyone should know that if you are getting into football at least. I'm sure it's the same with tennis and other sports, but in football at least you're jumping into the deep end and you either sink or swim.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now, football, you have a lot. I mean, much more competition, right? Because all you need to get started is a ball and some shoes, not even shoes many times. So
Yeah,
it's really, really tough. I completely understand. I mean, they may be,
that's the
yeah,
that's the beauty of the sport, it's the most accessible sport in the world.
right,
You just require, as you said, you don't even require a goalpost. You need two shoes to make a goalpost. If
right.
not, you need two stones to make a goalpost. You need a football, and that football, even if that football is not does not have the right air in it, you can still get a game going.
Most definitely.
So that's what I like about it. And football as a sport can unite millions. It can unite an entire community. And
Sure.
that's why I'm the happiest that now there are advancements taking place within the sport.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when I used to live in Chennai, and I lived like 100 meters away from the beach, and we used to play football at the beach every single day, and we had people from all walks of life coming in and joining us. We never cared about, you know, there we had someone's cook joining us. He had come from one of the poor states in the northeast. He was joining us, and so many people from all random walks of life joining us, and that's the beauty. I mean, anyone who can play joins us, and people are always welcoming to allowing them to play. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no barriers at all, no barriers at all, and that's why it's beautiful to see how many people in football have who have done well in their life.
Hmm.
It's You'll be amazed to see how they started and how they are living life right now. It's really nice to see.
Sure, sure. And all the racism and everything goes. I mean, those who actually play, right? For them, they don't see anything. You see
Yeah.
the work that Rashford's doing. I mean,
Hmm.
it's because he's been in that place, one, and also because you develop that sort of empathy, right? Once you start
Yeah.
mingling with people from different walks of life.
Completely. It's that, and the whole concept that it's a sport that unites people. It's a physical sport. There's a lot of you can call team bonding.
Mhm.
So all that stuff really develops friendships, and it develops lifelong friendships on many occasions. And again, I like every sport. I'm a massive tennis fan.
Mhm.
I like to play cricket, but again, those are not the most accessible sports to a common man, you see.
Definitely.
So and I hope that I don't know how, but I hope that there should be some kind of way where other sports are also as easily accessible as football.
Definitely.
Some modification, like I don't know, just uh, suddenly someone comes up with a new kind of tennis racket made of some common thing and a new kind of ball and then start playing tennis. So you- I hope this is a fantasy, but maybe someday other sports can also get as easily accessed as
Okay,
football.
there's a product placement here. Touch tennis, guys. Touch tennis is coming up. It was invented in UK, and a friend of mine has taken the, I don't know, rights to you know bring up touch tennis here. So basically, there are much cheaper rackets. The ball's different, and it's like a plug and play court. So you don't even need that big of a court. So you just mentioned it, so I'm just telling you. So
That's
yeah,
wonderful. Now, concepts like these are what's required in the sporting world.
yeah,
Anything that can make it easier for people to access that sport is perfect.
sure. Sure. So, okay, now to our last section, talk to us about academy management.
Now, academy management is the most broad topic one can talk about. There's so much involved. I won't go and give advice or gyan to others on how to run it, but I can just give a little insight on how we run our own
Yeah.
academy. So our entire concept, now we have to be clear about what the objective is. Many academies they set up because it's a way kids can get together and the person organizing it can benefit through fee. But and our thing is that our entire academy is formed with the ultimate objective being, as I mentioned, of people going to to a higher level of football. So
Right.
we just call ourselves, we don't give any fancy terms or anything like that. We are just a bridge between recreational players to becoming professional players.
Mm-hmm.
have a we have only been in for 2 years. We have been a academy for 2 years, and we can still boast of a track record in those 2 years, which could, if you make a comparison in the market, be better than many others that are around.
Mm-hmm.
Because our objective is clear. As coaches, we are always informed. We always try and get new interesting session plans that are applicable to the team we are working with. We always try and improve on our knowledge. We try and get to attend more courses so that we are well informed.
Mm-hmm.
And we always make sure that when the players come, they come for that one hour, and with the senior group it goes on to 1.5 hours on many days.
Mm-hmm.
That when they come and train, by the time they leave, they should improve in one particular skill.
Sure.
So there should never be, we go by this objective that whoever it is, even if we are working with 20 at a time, there
Mm-hmm.
should not be a single one from the 20 who has not improved a little bit and gone home. That's
Wonderful.
definitely not the point.
Right.
Our ambition starts with the 4-year-old. So if we have a 4-year-old, we need to ensure that by that 10 years later, that person should be among the best in the under 15 category.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since that, we as coaches ensure that there's that professionalism. The players also get this, and it gets into the mind of the players that when they are there, the senior group I'm talking about, not the when I say senior group, we have basically we have divided it into three groups: the toddlers, which are the under 6, then the junior group, which is players from between the age of 7 to 8, depends on the ability, all the way till 12 age 10 11, and then our senior group, which is quite broad, 12 to 17.
Right.
12 to 16, we have one 17-year-old who's our captain. Uh, Now, when we divide these groups, it's very much based on ability over age. So we have our 12-year-old playing under 15, under 16, whichever the tournament it is. And how I got inspired by this is that at most of the clubs I played in, I ended up being the youngest, or among the youngest two or youngest three.
Right.
So I believe that if you're that famous saying, if you're good enough, you're old enough. Now,
Right.
because we have this professional kind of vibe, the
Mm-hmm.
players also at the senior level, our senior batch, they enter every training session knowing that there's an objective, knowing that we as coaches are not going to come there and say, okay, start a game. It's all based on that. Okay, for example, you've come today, you need to ensure that your dribbling in the final third is much better than what it was
Mm-hmm.
day before yesterday.
Sure.
That's just an example.
Mm-hmm.
That way, we invest in the good, in equipment, in the best equipment that fits our budget.
Mm-hmm.
We always send our players for trials here and there. That's where we are different in a way, which I think, if we I'm not like trying to sell the academy. I've not even told you the academy's name so far.
Sure.
But if everyone can just follow a similar pattern, if they can,
Mm-hmm.
then we will ensure that there are better players playing. There's a higher quality of in football.
Right.
We don't really hold our players that, okay, we need to keep them because we have to live off the ego that we have produced a player, or stuff like try and keep the numbers up. We need to have X number of kids, we need to maximize on our profit. It's more of, once they reach a certain age group, it's about sending them out, because on the long run, it'll help us even more, because we can have a track record that, okay, these are the players that have gone to a higher level.
Right.
And it does invariably make the entire cycle flourish better, because you have more parents who will be sending their kids knowing that there's a track record. With our junior group, it's a mix, as I mentioned at the start. It's a mix of recreation, as well as letting them know that that seriousness will eventually come in. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't really keep it result oriented. It's more of that, okay, you have to, we may put on a practice of ball control
Right.
or passing. and we will do that. We will train them, but with more of a fun activity kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where where it changes a bit over there. With our junior group, it is about developing those fundamental motor skills. And our players, they are always playing tournaments in on weekends, because match experience is important. And we are hoping that that the academy does flourish better. We have, on purpose, I deliberately, we haven't really put too much into volume, that let's do a marketing campaign so that we can get 200 kids,
Right.
because we need to keep our quality in check.
Right.
What's more important is the achievements of players who leave us than the volume we have working with us. It may not be the best in terms of earning profit, but I know that in the long run, if we stick to our principles, it will help us with being self-sufficient, you can say.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, last question: what advice do you have for people starting out in football
Starting out as players or as coaches?
as players?
As players, the number one thing is that football is a game of the common man. There's no hiding. Hard work is the no sorry dedication is the first one. Hard
Mm-hmm.
work comes after that. One has to have this madness about the sport, that come what may, I need to achieve my whatever my goal is. One has to create short term, mid term, and long term goals. And there has to be this perseverance. There will be adversities. You will not There will be times when you may go for a trial, not get selected. You may play a match but not score a goal. You will have failures, but then it's all about not giving up and just quickly getting up and saying, start off all again. Let's try being successful in the next move. And one anyone who's trying to make a career, there should never be a chance for them to tell themselves at the end that they have given less than 100%.
Sure.
And usually the ones who show this determination till the end,
Mm-hmm.
they find a place somewhere in the sport.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's about never giving up.
Right. Well said. And so, Ryan, thank you so much for being part of this movement. And it has been an honor talking to you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And just like we are talking about development on the field, it's brilliant to see organizations like yourself all about the game, uh, taking interest in covering people from multiple sports. And I hope on the media front also, we have many similar organizations like yourself coming up. It's only going to benefit the sports world.
Thank you for the kind words, Ryan. And so now, before we leave you, why don't you tell all our listeners where people can get in touch with you for any inquiries, and tell us now you can tell us the name of your academy. We don't know it.
Okay. All right. So the name of the football academy is Mega Pro Football Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Just give a little 1 minute thing. It's Mega Pro Football Academy. So far there have been 2 state players, district players. Can't remember how many players are playing at better clubs. We have it's run by 3 of us: Sid Shukla, Aches Bhagwat, and me. The best way to contact me is through my Instagram at Coach Ryan Roy.
Brilliant. And okay, so you guys can get in touch with Ryan on his Instagram. I will share his email ID as well on the show notes. So any inquiries, you want to join the academy, please directly contact him. And yeah, good luck everyone. And Ryan, thank you, and hope to see
Ab-
you.
Absolute pleasure, Sid. Absolute pleasure.